Welcome everybody to the third session of the Global XR Conference in the Comet Room. I'm here with Cassie Moya, and yeah, she will give a talk about Meet Microsoft Mesh. Right.
Great.
I'll share your slides. Here you go, and take it away.
Super. Thanks. So, hey, everyone. My name is Kathy Moya. I am a Senior Customer Experience Program Manager at Microsoft. So that means that I work primarily between customers and engineering. So we talk to the customers. We work very closely on things like our technical adoption program and our public preview for Microsoft Mesh. And then I take the feedback we're hearing there and give it back to our engineers so we can build the best product we can for you. I did put my LinkedIn information up there. I can't be your personal tech support, but if you want to give me feedback about Mesh, always happy to listen to that, and just happy to connect to people who are thrilled about extended reality in all its different forms. So what I'm going to do today is talk about what Mesh is and kind of veer towards the demo heavy, although, 40 minutes, I got to kind of pack it in here. So Mesh is really three different components right now, one of which is generally available, GA as we call it. Avatars for Teams is out there. It is built into Teams. So if you have the right licensing, which I'll show later, go ahead, you can pop it up so you can see, like, here's my little avatar me as I show up in my meetings these days. And I definitely love this when I don't want to be on camera for some reason. And also, because it can help with the fatigue. If I'm not camera ready, I've got my little VR imprint from doing my workout in the morning. But it's also a great segue, as we'll see, into the other types of experiences we have. So immersive spaces for Teams, also built totally into Teams in public preview right now. So not generally available yet, still tinkering with it, but it will let you take that avatar and move into a virtual experience and walk around. And I'll show you some little demos of this. And then I have a whole session again later today where I'm going to talk specifically about bringing people together in Mesh. And that's going to focus more on the events and how to think about structuring your events and bringing people in. The third piece we have has a couple different names. There's a standalone Mesh app, not part of Teams at all, but you can bring people into this standalone app, and in there you can create all these really rich custom environments. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can meet on Mars. You can meet in a digital twin of your campus. You can meet under the ocean. Or we hang out Fridays on the cabana. I think I have a picture of that later on the beach. So lots of different ways that you can engage here, but similar kind of experience. And you can get there either on a PC or a Quest headset. So if you have a Quest, that's great. Quest 2 is officially supported at public preview. Yeah, I know there's other stuff that should work, but we don't necessarily expect a lot of companies to go out and buy huge amounts of headsets at this point. We want to meet people where they are. So especially, with Teams, you have the PC desktop client, you just click right into that meeting and you don't have to install anything else. It's just there. There is a separate app that you can install, and that gets you that custom world experience. And if you're going to use that, then there's also a web portal that you use to create the events to go in. So this is what we got right here. Nothing else at this point for public preview. Definitely, considering more stuff for later. Licensing. Avatars in immersive space need one of those licenses. So you notice this is towards the business side. It's not consumer at this point. And we don't have the EDU SKUs here, but this is what we got. Again, avatars being generally available. Immersive space is still in preview. And then for the custom environments, the standalone app, you do need Teams Premium, and it needs to be a commercial tenant. And if you want to build custom environments, then you would also need to have Unity and its licensing. You can use the custom environments without creating custom environments. We give you a couple of prefab ones, but for most people, the value there is being able to do a lot of customization. So in terms of the Teams Premium, there is a way that you can try it out. So if you're just trying to kick the tires during our public preview here, you can get 25 licenses for 30 days, but it's a one-shot deal. So don't turn this on until you're really ready to use it. And as I show over here, you would go to admin.microsoft.com. So I'll go ahead and bring that up just because I know sometimes these slides, these consoles, we have so many consoles, it can get a little confusing. But you come down here to billing and you would say purchase services, even though this is just for a trial. And then you're going to be looking under collaboration and communication. And that's where you're going to see Teams, but you go to details and then there's going to be an option over here to start your free trial. And this doesn't start it yet. It's just going to take you into that kind of, are you sure screen? And so don't kick that off till you're ready, but you can say try now and you'll get your 1 month, 25 users. And so that's definitely going to be, your easy way to try Mesh out while it's in this public preview state. So we have some documentation up there, preparing your organization for Mesh. I'm actually doing a revamp on it. I don't know that it's live yet, but I'll pull out a couple of things here and include a little bit of some of the content that we're adding soon. You want to think about how you're going to roll this out because this is not a little isolated undertaking. It does have a lot of other pieces that need to be set up. So always having an executive sponsor for anything, you need someone to smooth out the road bumps and really get that executive sponsor in and early and excited. Because Mesh is a very different thing. Until they've actually gone in and experienced it, they may not be really understanding what you're bringing to the table here with this. If you're going to be using the Teams features, the avatars in the immersive spaces, then you need to be either good buddies with your Teams admin or be the Teams admin, because that's where you're going to go to tweak a couple of those features. We do have some ports and endpoints you need to set up. So some companies that can be really simple. You just fill out a form, they turn them on. Some it's going to be more like the Inquisition and teeth pulling to get the ports and endpoints you need. So start that process early. We have those documented of what you're going to need to turn on. This does get into some endpoint management. If you have conditional access and you're trying to use those Quest devices, it can get a little challenging. They are really consumer devices at this point. They are not enterprise. They do have some enterprise management they're working on, so you can check out the Quest for Business offering. The other piece is there's a Mesh app, both for PC and for Quest. So on the PC side, if you want to deploy it through your MDM solution like Intune, that's definitely an option, but talk to those people. Azure. So if you want to use Mesh Cloud scripting in the custom environments, not the Teams piece, but the custom environments can do some scripting, and you will need to have an Azure subscription to store that. It's really just an Azure thing, and Mesh just kind of, connects up to it. But find out who that person is, figure out how those things are set up. This is in public preview, so you definitely want to review your licensing terms before you start clicking yes there. Talk to your internal people about that. And then just some of the other pieces, like this is a big change management. How are you doing your communications? How are you rolling things out so people have proper education and understanding of the experience? Make sure they know who to call when there are issues. Help desk, help desk, help desk. Talk to your HR people. A lot of VR is really great for training. And so they may have some vested interest in using that, or just in how the experience is going to be used generally. If you're doing custom worlds, you may have some digital assets that you want to use or create. So make sure you've talked to your branding people and you stay within whatever your company guidelines are for that. And then licensing, as we already talked about, make sure you know what you have and how that's going to be set up so you can make sure everybody has the right licenses. All right, tenant-wise, important thing to understand about Mesh right now is it is a single tenant experience. So there's no guest access. You can't bring people from other companies into your tenant unless you want to actually create a native account in your Azure Active Directory, or now Entra ID, as we're calling it. And that's probably not going to work real well for some of the things that go on. So, for example, if you have people who are developing mesh environments for your custom mesh app experience, they either have to have an account in your tenant, or they have to give you the files, give them to somebody in that tenant to be able to do the upload. Now, giving somebody access as a Microsoft.com account, that's not going to happen. I can't go around and do that. So in some cases, we do have some little separate tenants that we've been doing demos in. But if you're going to create a separate tenant, you have to think about everything that goes with tenant administration. So that is, what do your policies allow for additional tenants? Do you have all of the licensing? Yes, including Teams Premium in that separate tenant. Make sure you have it secured. You're doing all the security updates, all of the correct configuration, things like two-factor auth. But you also have to think, if you're going to do a separate tenant, it actually works pretty well for the standalone Mesh app, because in the app itself, you can just log in and log out from various tenants. So it's just a couple of clicks. But if you're trying to test out Teams, most people, I live in my Teams. It's difficult to switch into another tenant for Teams. And while I'm in that other tenant, I may be missing things that are going on in my primary tenant. So definitely, if you're going to do the Teams features, it's going to be a lot easier to push that out inside of your main tenant. And then there are some controls you can do to restrict who has it inside that main tenant. Also, just so I don't forget to mention it, Teams 2.1 is not supported right now for the immersive experience. So you have to be in classic Teams, and the classic Teams experience, switching tenants is a little bit more complicated. So, really, if you can, just get it into that main tenant. So I'm going to look at setting up the Teams features first, and I will do a little bit of demo here. So we have the avatars and we have the immersive spaces. And if you're going to set up avatars, first thing we said, get buddy with your security people. You need just standard HTTP, HTTPS 8443. You need those 3 endpoints available. And then you'll need a few more if you're going to do the rest of the immersive experience, but just for avatars. And then really all you have to do is make sure that the app is allowed for people to install, which it is by default. So I'll just kind of walk you through where you go to do all of that. And all of this is going to happen in admin.teams.microsoft.com. So here's my Teams admin center. And this is all living here underneath the Teams apps. So I can go to Manage Apps, and I can search for my little avatars here. There we go. And you notice the status is allowed. So if I don't want this for people, I can turn it off. But if I leave it like this, the default of how Teams is set up is that people can then go into the app piece of Teams and add this in. And I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes here. The other piece that you could do here is you can look at things like the icons. Um, and so really at this point, you would be good to go. People can start using avatars. If you want to have it there automatically installed by default, then you can come up over here to the setup policies. And so I can add a setup policy that's going to say always have avatars there and available for people. So I would come over here and just search for it. I can type. And you can create multiple policies. You can add this to your default policy if you really want it there for everybody. There's also a little bit about pinning here. Pinning is what makes it show up on the left-hand navigation, and I can either just let users pin it, or I can come over here and I can force it to be pinned. You don't actually need to do this so much for avatars because there's going to be a different entry point when people start a meeting where they'll be able to see it. So, if you have other stuff where you want to use up that real estate, don't worry about pinning the avatars here. And this is just talking about, users can pin and rearrange unless you want to force things. So great. At this point, not only can they install it, but now they don't have to install it. It's just going to be there when they go to start their meetings. If you want to block it in some way, then you can come over here to the permission policies. And I'm not going to create a new policy here. I'm just going to show you that, I can come in here and I can block specific apps and allow all others. So what I did is I just came over here and I found my avatars and added it into the list over here. And then I can come through and I can assign users to different policies. So if I had some users that I didn't want to access avatars for some reason, like if I wanted to block my, one of my receptionists, I can come over here and say, he doesn't get the block avatars, or he doesn't get avatars, we're going to block him. So that's the avatar piece, and I'll give you a demo of what that looks like in a minute. But while we're in here, because setting up immersive spaces is very similar to avatars, I want to talk about it and some of the differences before I demo them. So still in admins.team.microsoft.com, you notice the list of endpoints has expanded here. So we do have a wider range of TCP and UDP ports that must be allowed for immersive space. We've had customers try to skimp on this and say, that's too many ports. People are freaking out. This is just what we've got right now in terms of public preview. You want to use it, you got to have those ports. And then you just have to make sure that the immersive spaces is allowed, which again, it is by default. So you don't have to go in and do this step. But what you could do is set up a block policy, and it can take a little bit for that to show up there. So give yourself some time for the the blocks and allows to be there. But you could say that you just want to block it for everybody in the default policy, and then allow it for specific people to show up who are in your pilot group. So back here in the manage apps, this is the one where you can actually just type mesh if you have trouble spelling out immersive like I do. And there, great, it's allowed. And then, you don't have to do setup policies because this is just there. It's accessed in a different way, and you don't need to worry about pinning it because, again, it's accessed in a different way. So all we need is making sure that it hasn't been turned off and you have the option of blocking. All right, so now, Robin, if we could switch over to the avatars demo. I didn't want to try to do all of this with Teams in StreamYard because that was just a little bit too much inception, and I was kind of worried that it was going to get a little bit crazy there. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, show you over here on the left. I have my navigation bar. And so you notice I have apps down there at the bottom. That's what I'm in right now. And so, kind of scrolling through the list, I have avatars available. This one's already installed, so it just says open. And then I can bring it up and I can customize my avatar from there. Or, as you'll see, and so this is my little avatar builder. I didn't dive into this because I have a bunch of beta stuff that or internal stuff that I can't show off. So this gives people just a separate way to configure the avatar. But when you are in any Teams meeting, you also have access to that avatar builder. So, sometimes I'll just go start a meeting, and then from the join screen, as you're looking at it here, you have effects and avatars. You have to turn off the video before you can turn on the effects and avatars. And then as long as they've installed it or you've pre-installed it, they have this little avatars option here. And then when you join the meeting, one of the nice things is we have some emotes that you can do. So, the reactions, you can do the hearts and the thumbs up and things. Just to the left of that, you notice it says raise hand. So your avatar can actually throw its hand up in the air, which is kind of nice. And then we have additional emotes that are available not on this reactions bar, but you got to kind of dig into that under the more avatars, as you'll see here. This is something we're working to make a better experience, but you can set up your backgrounds for avatars, and then you can do, waves and thinking and, just a ton of different stuff. So lots of fun here with avatars, and it's the perfect gateway to get them into immersive experiences. So speaking of immersive experiences, Robin, if we can go to the next video. All right, so I'll point out a couple of things here before we start playing this one with all the sound, etc. When you go to access this, you notice up on the menu there, you have view as an option. And so by default, everybody starts Teams in gallery mode. That's with all the little boxes. But you just go up to that view mode and you say immersive space. And I'll show you that on a slide in a minute. So the great thing is people don't have to do anything different. You just make sure it's allowed. And then poof, they're in this if they've set up their avatar. If they haven't set up an avatar, it's going to stop. It's going to say, okay, pick a prefab one or build yours. That's going to slow people down. So that's why I really encourage you to get those avatars used now so you can just waltz right into this experience. And then this is the default experience when you go into immersive space. We call this the lake house. And I'll point out a couple of things. So towards the back of the space, there is a big kind of a picture back there. If you are in a Teams meeting and you want to share content, that's going to actually turn into your screen share. And then all across the bottom of that picture, it'll have the gallery pictures. So the videos or the avatars or the still pics of people, as many as can fit in that little space there. And then people can kind of hang out in the little chairs over there, some in immersive space, and some people can still be in gallery mode. So it makes kind of a nice, mixed experience for people. Then off to the left, there's kind of a big glowing pink ball out there. That's an icebreaker activity. So you click on that and it will ask a question. And then, everybody can kind of do getting to know you stuff. There's a kind of a glowing pink line across the back there. And that is a single audio zone. So when you're in that space, everybody hears each other equally well. There's no spatial audio effect. But really the brilliant thing about Mesh is spatial audio. So even if I'm not wearing a 3D headset to get a visual 3D perspective, I can still get a 3D audio perspective. If I walk out of that glowing line and like into the couches and bookshelves over here, there's a little radio over there that you hear better when you get closer to the radio. And as you move further away, you hear it less. And the people over in the bookshelf area may not hear the people at the marshmallow pit as well. And there are a couple other areas. So I'll go ahead and play this. You can kind of see, a little bit of the spatial audio and some of the activities that we've
Need someone's dog here roaming around eating what's up on the floor.
Yeah, mine would definitely be doing that.
Yeah, see?
We have beanbag
Which
toss.
is roll 6. You got the arrow on the...
And, these are things to kind of help give, kind of bonding experiences. We can't give people food and alcohol. So we just try to give them, social experiences with interactive capabilities. These are built in. If you're going to do custom apps, you can build a whole bunch of other activities. And I'll show you how we have some samples that you can just bring in some of the stuff that we've already built for you. Okay, Robin, if we can flip back to the demo now, or the slide, yeah, there we go, my slides. And so when you go to access immersive space, you just click the view menu and you say immersive space, and that's it. It's really that simple. And having run lots of different events on different platforms, I will tell you that onboarding is the biggest headache. So this really solves a huge headache. Now, setting up Mesh standalone in some ways is even easier. There is a policy that may need to be set up called the cloud office or cloud office cloud policies that you can use to allow or deny the standalone app. But other than that, it really is just there by default if you have the Teams premium licenses for people in your environment. So we'll do a little bit of demo on that. The cloud policy over here is under, oh, actually, I think I've got that here in the next slide. Yeah, there we go, config.office.com. And you still have to do the same endpoints. You still have that wide range of TCP ports. We also have the tag for Azure Cloud, which I know is bunches of ports, but it's got to be there. It's not there, you know, we see things fail. And you assign the Teams Premium license. The cloud policy that you set up it is helpful if you want to block access to everybody and only allow specific access. But also if you want to use Quest headsets for Teams, you also have to set up this policy here. The Teams experience will allow Quest access. Just every Teams meeting you have shows up in Quest as long as this policy is allowing it. And it is set to allow by default. So just real quickly here because of time. So we would come down here. Here's my office policies. And I can put this as part of my tenant-wide policy, or I can create a mesh policy. And the tenant-wide one is the only one that will apply to everybody. So I would have to add groups here. And I have a mesh group, mesh users. There we go. And then you really do need to search for this one because there are a bunch. And so it's not configured. By default, we have turned it on. So when on and not configured meet, it will be on. But if you wanted to block it, you can come down here and say disabled, and then you could go back and create a separate group that has it enabled. And I won't dig any further than that just for time, but great. At that point, you can start using Mesh. Now, you would need the client for the standalone app. So if you have a Quest device, you would go to the App Lab, either on the PC or in the headset, and get that. You know, we have the links in our documentation if you want to get there specifically. And on the PC side, it's in the Microsoft Store. You can just search for Microsoft Mesh and install it or deploy it using some kind of MDM solution that can deploy store apps. So at that point, I have my client down here, and I won't try to start it because it takes a few minutes in the login experience. I don't have any apps happening right now, though. Everything is upcoming. So if I want to create one, if I say create mesh events, it says online here. That's because there's a separate portal that we use to create apps. It's not in the mesh experience. So portal.mesh.microsoft.com. And I'm going to show you a couple of things in here. So we have the events tab. Obviously, I can create events. And then I also have a tab for an environment. So we're giving you two default environments you can use. Oasis is also available in the Teams experience. If you don't want the lake house, you can switch to the desert. But we give you, an Oasis version here. And then there's Meadow. We sometimes call that our all hands template. It's a very big stage area with a couple conversation areas in the back. And if I have created other worlds down here in my worlds option, then I would see the other worlds that are available. So, like I have my finance world. I haven't created anything there. I have my Contoso HR. And I've uploaded a couple of custom environments, and I'll show you how to do that towards the end here. The other piece is that these environments can have templates. And so a template is a customization of an environment. An environment is like straight out of Unity, nothing done to it. But a template is when I've added things to that environment and I want to save that so I can create events very quickly. And if I'm going to do that, I have to save it in a world over here. So if I say create a world, I could create one for my salespeople and upload that. When you create a world, it is going to create an M365 group. And so another thing that we've seen in our public preview is sometimes people block that group creation. And so you will not be able to create worlds and do your custom stuff. You will still have the default environments, but you may need to do some work on that one to to make sure you can get your world set up. So I'm going to create an event, and let's call this our Contoso All Hands. And if you want to customize your event, set it in the future. I will often set it like in the next day so that I will have time to go in and tweak it without worrying about running out of time. Once you get too close to the start of the event, it will lock out customizations at that point. And also, people will not be able to enter the event until 10 minutes before the start time. So, if you want to go in and experiment, you may need to set it, just a little bit closer. If it's like an event just for one person here, I can do a thumbnail. I'm not going to do that now just for time. I can do a single room or multiple rooms, and I'll talk more about this in my events presentation later on today. But if you have multiple rooms, then what we do is copy the exact same room configuration multiple times. And that way you can broadcast your content across all those rooms and get a max of up to 200 participants, but at the rate of 16 per individual room. And as I said, those rooms are then duplicated. So people will fill up room 1 and then fill up room 2 up until you get up to your max participants. Obviously, we would like this to be bigger, but public preview is what we got here. So next trick, I can do an environment or a template. I haven't customized any templates yet if I'm coming here for the first time. So I would start with an environment, and I can do the oasis or the meadow here, or take one of my custom ones if I have them. Anybody that I add as an organizer, a co-organizer here, can also customize my event, and they can change who is invited to the event. So, definitely pick those people carefully. My pro tip here, and I'll talk more about this in the next session, is don't invite any attendees right now. And especially for your first one, just create one with nobody in it, and then you can go and poke around. After you create this, it's going to show up on calendars. So here is the one that I just created, my Mesh All Hands. I can go in, I can add people here as well. And so generally what I'll do is I'll go customize this a little bit more and do any tweaking. And then you can also add distribution lists from here. So if I'm ready to go in, I come back over here, and I'm not seeing it yet, but I may have to click the refresh button. And there we go. There's my All Hands. So it is live because, hey, it's 9:30 and early Pacific time. The event has started. So I can join if I have my avatar all set up here. You definitely want to check your audio settings and make sure that those are correct. We've also seen where sometimes it will take the system default. Actually, for this, it's fine. If you're in the Teams experience, it may take your operating system instead of your Teams audio. So just make sure that's in the right place there. And then bingo, I'm in. I can walk around. And again, I'll talk more about this in the event section. But I can customize this space prior to the event starting. I can put up, posters and play videos, and I can screen share into this environment and just generally have my. So in terms of troubleshooting, definitely check out the docs, aka MS Mesh Docs, has a whole section on troubleshooting, and we're constantly updating that. So keep checking back. Teams Immersive Space is only in Teams Classic, not Teams 2.1. So if you are forcing people to Teams 2.1, that won't work. You got to at least give them a choice to flip back to Classic for this. It will be coming to Teams 2.1. It's a high priority for us, but at public preview right now, it's what you got. Make sure people have the licenses assigned and that users are not blocked from using some of the Office components. So remember, for just the basic mesh experience, it's Teams for immersive space and Teams Premium for standalone. But like you just saw me where I saw you, sorry, I showed you where you can create a world, and that is an M365 group. So if it's blocked, you can't create worlds. If you want to add somebody as a member of a world so they can also create events off of that environment, they have to be able to access that M365 group. If you want to create a mesh event, well, like you saw, that's showing up on someone's calendar. So I have to have a mailbox on my account so I can send the invite, and so it can show up on their calendar. And of course, they have to have access to the calendar to see the event. If they do not accept the calendar invite, if they just leave it on their calendar, it's okay, they can get in. But if they decline an invite, or if they can't get it in the first place, then they will never see it over there on their dashboard. It won't show up. And so let's see, and create a template. There's some stuff that's going on in SharePoint there. If you want to customize apps, we actually use Office and SharePoint. So the great thing about Mesh is it's fully integrated into your M365 experience. But along with that means you have to be able to let people get to it, and you have to make sure they have all the rest of the licensing they need for those additional components. I've mentioned ports and endpoints a few times, and make sure those are open, please. And I pointed out the audio. Make sure that it's pointing to the correct audio, because we see issues with that. All right, I got a few more minutes here to talk about custom environments. So if you're using the standalone app here, we give you a bunch of different templates. And so I'm showing you some of the things that are available in the toolkit that you would be able to upload. And so that's a great kind of a shortcut if you want to try some other environments there. If you know Unity, you can go in, you can build stuff from scratch, or you can build it in Blender or whatever, and then bring it into Unity, but it must go through Unity to get up into the mesh world so that it can be used to set up an event. And I am not a programmer. I can spell Unity on a good day, and that's about it. But what I'm going to show you is just a little bit of basics of what you could do if you wanted to upload a sample environment, or if you wanted to just go create a hello world with a box in it and upload that, just so you understand what the process would be. Because quite honestly, a lot of you may end up hiring someone. We have some fantastic partners in our early adoption program right now. They are building phenomenal experiences. And so, it may just be great for you to go hire someone. I will tell you the most useful thing I learned in my entire college education was in my lighting design class. Of good, fast, cheap, pick two. So if you hire someone, it will be fast and it will be good, but it will not be cheap. These environments are very involved, very expensive, especially the more detailed you want and the more interaction you want there. But, if you want to go and learn and do some stuff yourself, or just upload one of the samples, that'll get you good and cheap. So what you're going to do, if you want to either build from scratch or upload one of the templates, I'll actually kind of show you both of the pieces here. So I already have Unity up and running because, oh my gosh, this thing can take a long time to load and render and do various things. And I've already installed my Mesh Toolkit. Other window. So you can download this. The link is in the help documentation. And then I get a lot of different default environments here. So a Dart Room, Mesh 101 has we have a little class that you can walk through that will show you, if you know Unity, kind of how to add some stuff in there. The Science Building is the one that I've already added by default. So when I know where this is and I want to go add something, I can come into my Unity hub. And I'm also going to point out, you have to have the correct Unity version. Whatever the most recent is, we document that. This is the one that we're using right now, but this will change over time. So I'm just going to say, go get the most recent. And then for my tool or my dev samples here, I would say add project from disk. I would go and pick one of those samples that I was showing you, like Toy Box. I can throw it in here. And then I can open up that project. And this is going to be very cooking show. I've already opened up my science building here. And then you notice across the top, I have a mesh toolkit menu option. So that does not come by default when you first install Unity and you do just a default template. So, this is where I could go and I can upload it, and I'll show you what it looks like in a minute here. If I wanted to create a new project, I can come in here, I can say new project, and the one that I want to use is the 3D URP, Universal Render Pipeline. And I would say create project, and then it's going to sit there and churn for a while, which again, don't want to sit and wait for that. So I have one over here that I've created, and you notice it does not have the mesh toolkit option over here. So what you're going to do for that, and this is all in our documentation here, you set up your project. I would create a new scene using the standard Universal Render Pipeline, and I get rid of the global volume over here. So I could just come over here and I want to do this first. No, actually, I'm just going to jump ahead because I only got 2 minutes on this. So what I would do is come over here after I delete the, get my scene, delete the global hierarchy. I come down here to my project settings, and under project settings, I have package manager. And so package manager is where I'm going to go to add this in. So I would say mesh.toolkit. I would put the URL as shown in the help there. And then the scope is com.microsoft. And I say save it, and it's going to upload a whole bunch of stuff. And then the next thing I would have to do after that, I'm just going to show you in my other one that's where I've already done that piece. I would come over here to Window, and I would look at my package manager. And then there's my Microsoft Mesh Toolkit. By default, it always highlights this mixed reality toolkit. Now you want to make sure you're on the Mesh Toolkit and then say install. And again, it'll churn and churn and churn for a while. And after it's installed, then you will get this extra little option up here for the Mesh Toolkit. And when I want to upload a world, whether it's one of my prefab samples that ships in the toolkit or a hello world that I've created, or something fancier that I've created, you come over here to environments, and you will have to make sure that you are signed in. And remember what I said about single tenant? You have to sign in with an account in that same tenant that you've set up for Mesh. And so, like what we've had to do in a couple cases, we've had some vendors build us environments or partners build us environments. They have to then give us all of that source file, just like it is, like I showed you in the toolkit samples. And then I would upload those. Then I can come here and I can say, create an environment. So this is what's going to actually upload it so I can see it in the portal. And so I can give it a description. Notice the worlds here. I showed you that I created some worlds. I could put this one in my finance group if I want to. I can set a max capacity. And if I am doing any cloud scripting, I mentioned that you had to have an Azure subscription. This is where you would put in your Azure subscription information. But, this is my hello world. I have no cloud scripting. And so I would just say, create the asset. I'd have to, fill in the other stuff here. So it would go ahead and upload the entire thing. And I'll just flip back over to my science building, which is already uploaded. And so if I'm doing any changes or when I'm ready to make a build, I do that on the Update Environment tab. And this will let me decide which platforms I'm building for. Android is how you get Quest. It's built on an open source Android. And then there's my PC build, and I would say build and publish. And then after this point, it would start showing up in my portal. Whew. So that's, the custom environment piece, if you want to bring anything in. But I'll say in closing here, get those avatars going, because it'll make it easy for people to slip in. In Teams, all you have to do is make sure that immersive space is allowed and that they have a regular Teams license, and make sure it's not disabled. And then they go to view immersive space from any Teams meeting they're in. Mesh is a standalone app. Make sure everyone has a Teams premium license, and then go create your events at portal.mesh.microsoft.com. install the app from the store, jump in. And then if you want to do the custom environments, that was, again, you need the Teams Premium license and you need the Unity license. And then I would really recommend checking out that Mesh 101 tutorial because it'll walk you through all the pieces. That's it. What questions?
Yeah, very in-depth explanation on how to get all this running, the mesh and the avatars. And yeah, so we had a bit of a discussion in the chat already, but I don't see any questions so far. So please, now is the time. I didn't know that these avatars are actually available for all Teams users. So you just need a basic license.
Yep.
I have to ask, like, if we can also get this in our Teams, because I couldn't see that what you mentioned, but I think it has to be enabled by the admin. So I cannot do that myself.
And people may have disabled it. So, yeah, as long as it's there. And, another thing about avatars is sometimes people say, oh, it's cartoony. I don't like that. But for some people, being able to represent themselves more as how they see themselves rather than, what biology has given them, it can be a very kind of inclusive, great experience if people understand that. We actually have a great article up on our Inside Track blog talks about how we are using things internally, and I can grab the link for the chat there. It's called Avatar Etiquette. You can just search for Mesh Avatar Etiquette. You can find it, and it talks about some of the best practices for using these.
Yes, we can definitely put it in chat. It sounds like an important point, to consider.
Yeah, Callahan, immersive spaces does not need premium, just regular Teams.
There we go. Yeah.
And Cal and I, we know each other. We were having a bit of a conversation. I think maybe you were setting up too many things, Callahan, because like I said, you don't need to enable it, or you need to make sure it's enabled, but you don't need to do the default install. It's just there. It's kind of accessed through a different piece of stuff for immersive spaces than for avatars.
Yep, I guess that answers that question. Very well. So, all right.
Other questions?
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk for a few minutes about events. If no one else has any other questions, I can kind of tease what I'm doing later today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So, the cool thing with events, get back over here. So if I want to go in and customize one of these, so I'll go into my my expo event and notice that it's happening next week. So I have plenty of time to customize it. Anyone who is a co-organizer can customize. Oh, come on, don't do this to me. Yeah, let me do the one I just created this morning. It's giving me grief. All right. Figure out what time I have. Let me create a new one. Hopefully it doesn't do this to me later.
Yeah, the pitfalls of life.
Always when you're rushing, right?
No problem. We have a little more time.
Oh, wait, no. Time. All right, so there's my other test. Hopefully this one will let me customize. Okay. That's the load screen we want. And definitely, I will point out file feedback down here, please. File feedback from stuff that's not working, because we really need that. That's why we're in public preview. So one of the things that I have down here on an event that's happening in the future is I can add artifacts. And what I can add right now are screen shares, videos, and images. More to come later. Let's see. So Satya also mentioned it would be possible to actually work in the Office apps in Mesh. Is this still planned? So what we were talking about, I believe, at that announcement was that you can work in Office apps in Quest. It was not specifically about Mesh. So there is another team, not the Mesh team, that's working on integration, and you'll be able to do things like the whole M365 Windows 365 experience in a Quest headset. So they are working on that one. That was what we announced in 2022. In terms of working in the Office apps, so you can do a screen share, and then anything that I can share on a window or a whole screen, just like you do in Teams, can show it there. We do not have productivity as a focus of the public preview. Now, obviously, we're part of M365. We want to bring everything in here, but what we have right now is just screen share, video, image. We know people are asking for whiteboard and some of the other kind of interaction experiences in Office. Give it time. We're on very short sprints, so this thing is just going to start exploding. Now that we're in the public preview, and once we hit our general availability. We don't have a date set yet for general availability, but it will come and it will go fast. All right.
All right. He's satisfied.
Cool.
So back to your live event. So
I'll just show the screen share just because, that's the one that most people want. And when you come in, it's a little bit freaky because, it's like, wait, with this blue thing, I have to back up. So I'm hitting my down arrow key to back my avatar up here, and I can get some perspective on it. And then I've got this thing here. And so this is really just a screen that I can move around. My big pro tip is if you look at the very bottom, there's a little kind of a white line going down, and there's a little kind of a target area that shows where this is going to be. It's really helpful. I'm used to. So if I want to line this up on the wall, I can just kind of go, and you can see actually started to disappear into the wall, but I can kind of see on the floor where that's going to show up, and it really helps to kind of get some 3D perspective on this because everything is 3D. So I want to kind of walk over and look at where I'm placed. It's really easy to think, oh, that's huge. And then it's just a question of perspective, like it's really far away or really close up here. So that'll get you a screen share. And then when you're actually in your host panel, here we go. Here's my host panel, or control panel. No, that's not what I want the host panel. There we go. There's my host panel. From there, I can say screen sharing and then just bring my content in at that point. So more about that in my next piece.
Yes, very interesting.
Time, so
see it in practice. Oh yes, we are actually out of time. You remind me, I was so enthused with all the stuff you're showing. But definitely we will explore more in the future updates of Mesh. And thanks you very much for this in-depth demonstration. And enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you, Kathy, again.
Thanks. Y'all are doing great work. Great to see you all.